Mr. President.
Senator from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to personally thank you for all the work that you've done to come up with what I believe is the right framework for fulfilling the promise to create a viable solution for the DACA population and to deal with the other things that are critically important as we take this first major step in immigration reform after decades of failure. Senator Langford, who will be speaking after me, and I last year decided that we really wanted to get a discussion around a legal path to citizenship for a significant population of the illegally present, or a significant portion of the population of the illegally present. The Deferred Action Program that was implemented by President Obama is what we used as a kind of a baseline for determining how we could actually define that population and set terms so that we could ultimately accept them into this country and they could ultimately get citizenship. The proposal that we've outlined today, I should also thank Senator Grassley for his leadership. Chairman Grassley, I've served on the Judiciary Committee for 3 years in my first term here in the Senate, and for 3 years in the Immigration Subcommittee. And under his leadership, we've crafted a framework that's consistent with what the President has proposed. It's also consistent with what virtually everybody who's been around here any amount of time have voted for in one form or another. It's a four-pillar framework that first begins with a path to citizenship for some 1.8 million DACA-eligible persons in this state today. They were young when they came to this country. Some are adults now. But they came to this country through the decision of their parents. And I, for one, and I believe many of my colleagues who support this bill, believe that they should be given an opportunity to be U.S. citizens. They'll have an opportunity based on a 10-year or 12-year timeline with, after the bill is ratified, the certainty of having legal status, and then a path to citizenship that could be 10 to 12 years. Fairly straightforward in terms of the requirements to come into the program. Some 1.8 million will qualify. Once we ratify this bill, send it to the President's desk. But coupled with this, it's critically important to not make the mistakes of the past. First off, let's not just come in and assume we're going to pass a standalone DREAM Act. The reason for that is it's failed every single time it's been attempted. It's failed under a Republican administration. It's failed under a Democratic administration. It even failed in a time when President Obama was in the White House and there were supermajorities of Democrats in the Senate and a majority in the House. So even when not a single Republican vote would be necessary, they were unable to produce a solution. Now this week, we have an opportunity to debate one that I think works. Number one, there's broad consensus. Even among people who have never supported a path to citizenship before, there's broad consensus that this is a workable, viable, compassionate framework. 1.8 million DACA-eligible persons qualified for a path to citizenship. Then we get into border security. Senator Ernst talked about border security. It's critically important to think about border security as not the wall. The President has said that he does not see in his vision a wall going from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. There are certainly places where we need structures, but we also need so many other things layered on top of it so that we actually know who's coming to this country, what's coming to this country, and if they should try to cross the border illegally, we know where they are for no other reason than for humanitarian reasons. Because thousands of people have died crossing the border. Over the last 20 years, almost 10,000 people. About 1,000 of them young children. By putting into place a wall structure where it makes sense, better technology and resources at the border, we're going to know who's coming to this country. We're going to know what drugs are coming into this country. We're going to do a much better job of finding and protecting people who may be trafficked to this country for the purposes of sex trade, human trafficking. It comes through a common sense 10-year implementation that was developed by by Homeland Security and Border Patrol. This wasn't something that started in the White House. It's something that's taken a year or two to get into place, which is a rational, multi-phased, multifaceted solution for border security. Then what we've got to take a look at is the reality of our broken immigration system. We have millions of people waiting to come into this country, some of them as long as 20 years. This proposal, the proposal that we'll introduce this week, and hopefully gain the support of the Senate, that we know the President supports and we believe that the House will support, draws down a queue that's been out there for almost 20 years. 3.9 million people that are in the process right now have been petitioned for because of a family relationship with some other U.S. citizen. We're proposing, actually trying to figure out a way to accelerate that, to have them move through the naturalization process far sooner than they will if we fail to produce a solution this week. And then over time, we can find other possible opportunities for immigration. But today, why don't we at least look at how we fix the broken immigration system, make sure that those who are in the system know that we're not turning our back on them. And then over time, we can get on to possibly, in my case, I think at some point we could actually even build a case for even more legal immigration than we have today. But now, let's at least make sure we've got an immigration system that people can rely on and actually can become U.S. citizens. The real sticking point, and I think what you're going to see this week, is we're beginning to see more and more consensus on the three pillars that I just discussed: the DACA population, border security, and the visa lottery being used in a way that rewards merit and also uses those green cards to bring more people into the country sooner rather than the 2 decades they've been waiting. The last thing that we have to look at is chain migration, family unification or reunification. We are out of step with most other countries in terms of how we allow immigration into this country. I, for one, think it's reasonable to continue to have a component to allow families to be reunified, people that come over on work visas or people who are coming through whichever immigration process they may choose. But at the end of the day, to have such a small number of our immigrant population, some 1 to 1 million every year, come in without any regard to merit is irresponsible. In fact, I think if we continue to do it, we do it at our own, at the expense of maybe future immigration, where we want more and more skilled people, people who can come to this country, contribute immediately, satisfy the needs of our society. And we can do that through a reasonable, rational discussion about what our immigration policy should look like over time. And I'll leave you with this. In a country like Canada, 63% of their legal immigration has a skill requirement associated with it. In a country like Australia, the same thing. But we have 72%, almost 3/4 of all of our immigration has no tie whatsoever to the needs of this nation, our economy, our educational institutions, our communities. All we're saying is let's take a look at this and maybe change the proportions so that we can actually have a program that's modernized, that's also focused on the needs that we have for our great country. This week, you're going to hear a lot of things. I told a group today at lunch that be ready for me to vote against something that you would expect me to vote for. I'm going to do that. I fully expect I'll have some of my Republican colleagues and some of my Democrat colleagues offer an amendment that I don't have a problem with the underlying policy, but I have a huge problem with producing a result here in the Senate that has virtually no chance of going to the President's desk and becoming law. And then we'll ultimately get on the Secure and the Succeed Act. It's a well-structured, 4-pillar solution that's been very much instructed by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that I know the President will support, and I believe that the President can convince our colleagues in the House to get it to his desk. So again, I want to thank my colleagues, Senator Lankford and Senator Grassley, Senator Perdue, Cotton, all those who have weighed in, Senator Cornyn, to try and craft a solution that's responsive to the President's framework, responsive to some of the concerns that our friends on the other side of the aisle have. And now it's time for us to act. Let's do something different. Let's produce a result. Let's not get up here and talk about it and say, well, I tried. Let's produce a result, provide certainty to those people waiting for us to act, to those DACA recipients. Let's secure our border and let's modernize our broken immigration system. And if we do that, we've done a great thing. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President.